Reality check. The person who's going to win the election, become mayor, on the first day in their office, somebody comes in and tells them, you're starting with a $222 million deficit. That's not a fun way to start. And the whole country now, there's been a big talk about the whole fiscal cliff. California has not been immune. In fact, in many ways, California is even more trouble. LA has not been immune as well. So if you had to give the one reason for this, or in this situation, for this $222 million deficit, the one mistake, the one thing that happened, if you had to go back to change, and then what idea, what plan, what's the one thing you would do to fix that reason that you think lays behind this deficit, and how would you run a great city with this big dark cloud hanging over you? We will start with Mayoral, please.
In fact, the figure you mentioned, I hope it's that much. It could actually be more. In fact, if you actually look at the numbers, it could be a lot worse. And look, we have a real pension problem. We're actually on the brink of bankruptcy. This is not a joke. And why? It's because our elected officials that have been in office overpromised. In fact, they are on record where they regret the decision they made. That's a lack of leadership, a lack of foresight, a lack of someone asking the tough questions, a lack of saying whatever interest group is behind you to say, hold on, let me do the math, that's not going to work. If we actually don't do something about this, in 5 years, pension benefits are 50% of our budget. 50%. That means we're going to have to cut everything. No money left. We wouldn't be able to hire new people. The retirement security we sold our workers, no longer. That's what's happening. Number one thing for the next mayor is to address the pension system. If pension fund liabilities aren't addressed, it will force us to continue cuts, and just let me articulate so you know what those cuts are. Parks, repairing our streets, any education, any learning opportunities for our young people. I'm the only candidate who will actually lay out a solution, and I'm going to lay it out in the next couple of weeks so you actually see a detailed solution on how to deal with the pension system and what the next mayor needs to do on day one. In fact, it's probably too late to do it. The mayor needs to do it today. We need to make sure that all workers contribute more to their pension system. We need to raise the retirement age. We need to adjust the benefits formula. And we need to move closer to 401k-like plans. Yes, I said it. We need to have all options on the table and look at everything. And lastly, we need a mayor that understands the financial system and the markets and the economy. I'm the only one that's actually worked firsthand on a trading floor, helping company access capital, and having someone that actually knows how to deal and actually work out the math on these solutions. And we need to have innovative plans such as buyouts for all retirement plans. That's what the next mayor needs to do. It's tough decisions. I have no interest groups behind me, and I'm the only one that's unafraid to address them.
So let's put this in context. It was projected 4 years ago that we would be at $1 billion deficit this year. The toughest recession in our lifetime took all of our revenues off the cliff. And while folks say this may be a math problem or we need to do this, some of us have actually been solving the problem. I was city council president for 6 years, and I couldn't be on the sidelines. I couldn't just say theoretically what I would do. I had to actually do it. And I have the strongest record of anybody on the stage of delivering pension reform. And it's not just about pension reform. It's about how many workers we had, and it's about our healthcare costs. We reduced our city payrolls by 5,000 people. To put that in perspective, that's the same level as when Tom Bradley was here with 1 million more people. I led negotiations with unions across the table, respectfully but tenaciously, that have produced hundreds of millions of dollars of pension reform savings that took that number down from $1 billion to $200 million. Healthcare that nobody was talking about, which had tripled in the last decade. For the first time, we have folks that are paying out of pocket for their healthcare premiums. We were paying zero before that. You think that was easy? You think that it's a fun thing to go to people and say, we need to take something away? But leadership is about telling people not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. And the decision that you'll have to make about who's going to be the next mayor is who has had that experience directly in the fire of negotiation, of being able to do that and to deliver that. But we have to grow our economy because cuts are not a way forward for our city. We have to make sure that we have somebody who's a proven job generator, who's brought jobs here and attracted companies to the city, who's cut our business tax so that we can have a different conversation. You can project out bankruptcy tomorrow. Every time we hear from folks that were about to be bankrupt, it reminds me of that minister who said that the end of the world is coming, and then when it didn't come, he had to change the date. Let's get in the fight together and stop the finger pointing, and let's figure out a way to do the work that many of us did. Difficult work. Politically, it would have been easier to stay on the sidelines, and many did. But it is time for us to have a mayor with a proven track record of delivering that, and who will make sure that that city's budget is finally balanced.
3 things we need to do. First and foremost is job creation. Because when people have jobs, not only do they spend their money, but the values of the homes go up, everything changes. So that we need to look at Los Angeles of being the jobs of the future. And it's making sure that we have a port of Los Angeles and Long Beach that can continue to provide the goods movement for 46% of the entire country. To an airport that doesn't look like a third world airport and in fact is a place where people want to go and to be able to have access to. To a city where we have an entertainment industry that is not runaway production, it is now ran-away production. And we need to keep those jobs here. Those are good paying jobs. Not just in front of the camera, but in back of the camera, and all of the ancillary services. We need to create those hubs of economic activity and continue to grow Silicon Beach and the technology companies that are so important to the future of the city of Los Angeles and clean technology. So jobs are number 1. But 2, it is continuing the work on pension reform. It is ensuring that we sit across the table and say, how do we work with our current employees to address some of those issues and see the savings that are necessary. And it is about pension spiking and double dipping and looking at the issue I brought up in my opening remarks, which was people not to get pensions if in fact they have committed a job-related crime. But it also is about efficiencies. When I've done an audit and looked and seen that in fact people were stealing gasoline and we could have saved it by actually knowing how our gasoline was being spent. To looking at contracts for our street furniture funds and see that in fact we could have gotten $8 million now if the city had acted in the last year and have demanded that they act and renegotiate that. And it is about making sure that we focus in our priorities and performance-based budgeting. I'm the only candidate standing up here who's been in the private sector of DreamWorks movie studios and worked in a family business and owned in my family for 65 years. I get it. I've managed a department and I've been able to say that the future of Los Angeles will depend on job creation and making sure our money is spent wisely.
Your question was what was the cause of the deficit? And what do you do on day 1 as mayor deal with it? I will answer it for you. The cause of the deficit is complete municipal malpractice. Now, it is easy today to say, well, wait a minute, we didn't know that the recession was going to be that bad. Maybe they didn't. Lots of people told them it was going to be that bad, but let's assume, for the sake of argument, that they didn't. What they did know is that the city was in deficit then. When they signed the contracts for the employee raises that they've admitted they now regret, the city was in deficit then. That means we were spending more money than we were able to take in. That has contributed to this ballooning, and it is a ballooning structural deficit that continues. The term bankruptcy has not come from a candidate on this stage for political gain. The term bankruptcy came from the Chief Administrative Officer, Miguel Santana, who said that we have run out of slush funds to continue pouring into the city's general fund. Now, something that you're not going to hear about from one of the elected officials. It's in the city's financial statements, though. There are some contingencies that could push our city even closer to the edge. 3 things. A potential $750 million judgment because of the illegal telephone tax that they liked. That could come due, as the city's financial statements say, at any time. $183 million, you heard Mr. Garcetti a moment ago talk about laying off all these city employees. They transferred over 1,500 of them to the DWP. I did not see a help wanted sign for 1,500 employees at the DWP. And they are now suing the city for $183 million for the pension obligation that they face. It's in the financials. $522 million banked police overtime that the MOU could call due on June 30th, 2014. So we will be fortunate if it's $220 million. How do you solve the problem? They have given the new mayor the leverage of bankruptcy to use to negotiate with the unions. I'm a lawyer for 25 years. I've been involved in these high-stakes negotiations, and that's exactly what it's going to take to solve the problem.
Let me answer your question. Hindsight is a powerful tool. And if we had the power to go back to 2007 and redo the memorandum of understanding that gave our employees raises, certainly I would go back and do it another way. But this is where we find ourselves now, and I'm a reality-based person. So we have to refocus on the core services that are mandated by our city charter: fire, police, planning, city attorney, libraries, recs, and parks. Core services. We have to question whether we should be in the business of running and owning a zoo, running and owning a convention center, and to see if there are other opportunities to get someone else to form a public-private partnership with us, or to, God forbid, say these words, privatize, contract out, have someone take over the operation, treat the employees that they take with them in a manner that is fair and equitable, but to make more revenue for the city of Los Angeles and to bring more money into the general fund. This is where we find ourselves, and this is what we must do. We also have to focus on future economic development. One of the greatest ways that we can grow this city is through travel and tourism. We are on the verge of getting the recognition that we've worked hard for the last 20 years with cultural institutions, a high concentration of cultural institutions, opportunities in sports and entertainment here in Los Angeles, putting people back to work. We can take those opportunities and leverage them through agreements with the people who build those projects to make sure that not only do we hire and put our people back to work, but that whatever tax they generate goes back into our general fund. Allow them to reinvest some of that tax back into their projects so that we can get more projects built, more hotels built, put more people back to work. We've already put 90,000 people back to work. We have the potential to put 30,000 more if we're fortunate enough to get a new convention center and stadium.
Okay, I want to thank the candidates. We will now begin our closing remarks. We will start with Manuel Paites, and then Mr. Garcetti, Kevin James, Wendy Gruhl, and Jan Perry.